The frontier bride seemed strange, but the cowboy couldn't leave her alone. The winter wind cut across the open plains like a sharp knife. The sky was heavy with dark clouds, and the snow was falling in thick, angry flakes. Ethan McCall stood by the window of his small ranch house and watched the storm move across the land. He had lived in this part of the frontier for years, and he knew the weather could change fast. One minute the sky could be clear, and the next minute the world could be covered in white. Ethan was a man of few words. He had learned long ago that talking too much did not help in a place like this. The frontier was a harsh teacher. It taught you to be strong, to be quiet, and to depend on yourself. Ethan had always trusted his own hands more than he trusted other people. That was why he liked the silence. He liked the simple life of caring for his cattle, fixing fences, and surviving each day. The ranch was not big, but it was enough. It gave him work and kept his mind busy. He had a small barn, a few horses, and a herd of cattle that he cared for as if they were his family. He had no wife, no children, and no close friends. The town was a few miles away, and Ethan only went there when he needed supplies. The people in the town respected him, but they did not know him well. Ethan did not share his life with them. He did not share his pain. That was why the arrival of a stranger on such a cold night surprised him. Ethan saw her first from the corner of his eye. She was a thin figure walking slowly through the snow, carrying a small bundle wrapped in cloth. The storm made her hard to see, but Ethan could tell she was moving with purpose. She was not a traveler who got lost. She was a person who had a destination. Ethan did not go outside right away. He watched from the window as the woman moved closer to his property. Her steps were careful, as if she was afraid of slipping. Her coat looked old, and her boots were worn. She was not dressed like someone who belonged in the town. She looked like she had been on the road for a long time. The wind blew harder, and the snow became heavier. The woman paused near the fence, as if she was deciding whether to continue. Then she lifted her head and looked toward the ranch house. Ethan felt a strange feeling in his chest. It was not fear. It was not curiosity. It was something like concern. He walked to the door, opened it, and stepped outside. The cold hit him immediately. It felt like a wall of ice. Ethan pulled his coat tighter and called out, "Hey, you there!" The woman looked up. Her face was pale from the cold, but her eyes were clear and steady. She did not show fear. She did not show panic. She simply looked at him as if she had expected him. "Are you lost?" Ethan asked. The woman did not answer right away. She held her bundle closer and slowly walked toward him. Her movements were calm, almost careful, like someone who had learned to move quietly, so she would not draw attention. When she reached the porch, Ethan saw her face more clearly. She had dark hair that was tied back, and her cheeks were red from the cold. Her eyes were a soft gray, but there was a strange hardness in them, like someone who had been through a lot and had learned not to trust easily. "My name is Clara," she said at last, her voice soft but clear. "I was told there is a man here named Ethan McCall." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine, not from the cold, but from the surprise. He had not expected anyone to know his name. He had never been famous. He had never been important. He was just a man living alone on the frontier. "That's me," he said. "What do you want?" Clara hesitated. She looked away for a moment, as if she was trying to decide what to say. Then she looked back at him and said, "I need shelter." Ethan did not like the idea of bringing a stranger into his home. He knew how the town would react. They would whisper. They would judge. They would say he was being foolish. But he could not ignore the woman standing in front of him. She looked tired, cold, and alone. The storm was getting worse. If he sent her away, she could freeze in the snow. Ethan could not let that happen. He had seen enough deaths in the winter to know how cruel the cold could be. "Come in," he said finally, "but don't cause trouble." Clara nodded once and followed him into the house. The warmth hit her immediately. She breathed in slowly as if she had been holding her breath for days. Ethan shut the door and watched her for a moment. She stood near the stove, staring into the fire like it was the only thing keeping her alive. Ethan set a chair near the fire and said, "Sit. You look like you've been through a lot." Clara sat down slowly. She wrapped her hands around the chair's arms, and her body shook slightly. She looked at Ethan with a mixture of gratitude and caution. "I've been traveling for weeks," she said. "I was supposed to meet someone in the town, but he never came. I was told to come here instead." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Who told you to come here?" Clara hesitated again. She looked down at her hands and said, "A man in the town. He said you would help me." Ethan did not like the sound of that. He had never been the kind of man who helped strangers. He had never been a hero. He was just a man trying to survive. But he could not ignore the truth. The woman was here, and she needed help. He walked to the kitchen and started boiling water. He knew the woman needed something warm to drink. He found a cup, poured the water, and added a little sugar. He brought it to Clara and said, "Here, drink. You need to warm up." Clara took the cup carefully. Her hands were shaking, but she held it as if it was the most precious thing in the world. She took a sip, and her eyes closed for a moment. Ethan watched her closely. She looked like she was trying not to cry. "Thank you," she said quietly. Ethan nodded. He sat down across from her and watched her face. She looked strange, but not in a dangerous way. She looked strange because she seemed so quiet and distant. She did not smile. She did not speak much. She acted like she was always waiting for something. Ethan had seen many people in his life. He had seen men and women who were strong, and men and women who were weak. He had seen people who were kind, and people who were cruel. But Clara was different. She was not like anyone he had met before. She looked like a person who had learned to survive by being careful. "What happened to you?" Ethan asked. Clara looked up at him. Her eyes were clear, but her expression did not change. "I don't want to talk about it," she said. Ethan understood. He did not push her. He had learned that some people needed time before they could open up. He could feel that she was not lying. She was simply not ready. The storm continued to rage outside. The wind howled like a wild animal, and the snow slammed against the windows. Ethan listened to the noise and felt a strange sense of peace. The world outside was dangerous, but inside his home, he could control the warmth. He could control the fire. He could control the safety. He looked at Clara again. She was sitting quietly, holding the cup in her hands. Her eyes were fixed on the fire. She did not move much. It was as if she was waiting for something to happen. Ethan could not help but feel responsible for her. He did not know why. He did not know what he was supposed to do, but he knew that he could not leave her alone in the storm. After a while, Clara stood up. She looked around the room as if she was checking for anything she might need. She moved slowly, carefully, and her eyes were always alert. Ethan realized that she was not just tired. She was afraid. "Do you have a place to stay?" Ethan asked. Clara shook her head. "No," she said. "I don't have anywhere to go." Ethan felt a heavy weight in his chest. He thought of his own life. He had always been alone, and he had always chosen it. But now he looked at Clara and wondered if he had been wrong to choose solitude. He stood up and walked to the bedroom. He pulled out an extra blanket and brought it to the living room. He handed it to Clara. "This is for you," he said. "You can sleep on the couch. I have a spare room, but I don't want to force you into it. You can stay where you feel safe." Clara took the blanket and wrapped it around herself. She nodded once, and for the first time, she showed a small sign of trust. "Thank you," she said again. Ethan did not answer. He simply watched her. He did not know what tomorrow would bring. He did not know if the town would accept her. He did not know if she was truly safe. But he knew one thing: he could not leave her alone. The night grew darker, and the storm continued. Ethan kept the fire burning and the door locked. He listened to the wind and thought about the strange woman who had arrived at his door. Clara sat quietly on the couch, staring at the fire. She did not speak. She did not move, but Ethan could see that she was not the same person she had been when she first arrived. She seemed slightly calmer. She seemed slightly less afraid. Ethan did not know what her story was. He did not know why she had come to him. He did not know what she wanted, but he knew one thing: the frontier was a harsh place, and sometimes even the strongest people needed help. Ethan watched the fire, and he thought about the strange feeling he had when he first saw Clara. He did not understand it. He could not explain it, but he knew that he could not ignore it. He would protect her. He would keep her safe. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he had a reason to stay. The morning after the storm was calm, but the air was still cold. The snow had covered the ground like a white blanket. Ethan McCall woke early, as he always did. He looked out the window and saw the ranch covered in snow. The world looked quiet, almost peaceful. But Ethan knew the peace was only on the surface. The frontier could be calm one moment and deadly the next. He went to the kitchen, started the fire, and made coffee. He moved carefully, not wanting to wake Clara. He had seen how tired she was, and he knew she needed rest. He had also seen the fear in her eyes. He knew she was not just tired. She was carrying a heavy weight inside her. Clara was still sleeping on the couch. Ethan watched her for a moment. She looked small under the blanket, like a bird trying to stay warm. Her face was calm now, but Ethan could see the lines of stress still there. He wondered what kind of life she had lived to bring her to this point. Ethan did not like the idea of having a stranger in his home, but he also did not like the idea of sending her away. He had learned that the world was not kind to women who traveled alone. He had seen men take advantage of them. He had seen people treat them like they were not human. Ethan did not want that for Clara. He poured a cup of coffee and carried it to the living room. He set it on the table near the couch and waited. After a while, Clara woke up. She sat up slowly and looked around. Her eyes were still tired, but there was a small hint of relief in them. "Good morning," Ethan said. Clara nodded. "Good morning," she replied quietly. Ethan sat down across from her. He watched her carefully. He could tell she was trying to gather her thoughts. She seemed to be thinking about something, as if she was deciding what to say next. Ethan broke the silence. "You should eat," he said. "You need strength." Clara nodded again. She stood up and walked to the kitchen. She looked at the food on the table and hesitated. She did not know how to act. She did not know what was expected of her. Ethan watched her, and he realized something. Clara did not know how to live in a home. She did not know how to feel safe. She had been on the road for so long that she had forgotten what it meant to be normal. He felt a strange mix of sadness and anger. Sadness because she had suffered. Anger because someone had made her life so difficult. "Are you hungry?" Ethan asked. Clara nodded. "Yes," she said. Ethan handed her a piece of bread and some warm soup. Clara ate slowly, as if she was not used to having food in front of her. Ethan watched her carefully, making sure she ate enough. After she finished, Clara looked at Ethan and asked, "Why are you helping me?" Ethan did not answer right away. He thought about the question. He had never been asked that before. He had always been alone. He had never had to explain himself. He finally said, "Because you are here. Because you need help. And because I can't leave you alone in the storm." Clara looked at him for a moment. Her eyes were still guarded, but she seemed to relax a little. "Thank you," she said again. Ethan nodded. He did not want to talk too much. He knew that talking could make her uncomfortable. He knew that she was not used to trusting people. He decided to give her space. The day passed slowly. The snow continued to fall, but the storm had lost its strength. Ethan spent the morning checking the fences and feeding the cattle. He did not want Clara to see him working too hard. He did not want her to feel like she was a burden, but Clara watched him from the window. She watched his hands move quickly and confidently. She watched the way he handled the horses and the way he cared for the animals. Ethan noticed her watching, and he felt a strange feeling again. He felt like she was learning, studying him, like a student studies a teacher. In the afternoon, Clara approached him. She stood near the barn door and looked at Ethan. "I want to help," she said. Ethan was surprised. He did not expect her to say that. He had thought she would stay inside and rest. He had thought she would be too scared to help. "Help with what?" Ethan asked. Clara looked at the snow-covered land. "Anything," she said. "I don't want to just sit here." Ethan studied her for a moment. He could see the fear in her eyes, but he could also see determination. She was not the kind of person who would give up easily. She had survived the journey. She had made it this far. That meant she was stronger than she looked. Ethan nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "You can help me feed the animals." Clara nodded. She followed Ethan to the barn. The cold air hit them again, but Clara did not complain. She stood beside Ethan as he opened the barn door. The animals inside were warm and loud. They moved around, curious about the new person. Ethan handed Clara a bucket of feed. She took it carefully, as if she was afraid of making a mistake. She walked slowly between the animals, pouring the feed into the troughs. The animals pushed their heads forward, eager to eat. Clara watched them quietly. She did not smile, but she looked calm. Ethan could see that she was learning. She was learning how to be part of a normal life. After the animals were fed, Ethan and Clara walked back to the house. The snow was still falling, but the wind had slowed. The sky was lighter now, and the world looked less harsh. Back inside, Ethan started a fire and made more soup. Clara sat near the fire, holding her hands close to it. She looked tired, but she did not seem as scared as she had the day before. Ethan sat down beside her and asked, "Do you have family?" Clara hesitated. She looked down and said, "No." Ethan felt a sting in his chest. He had always assumed that everyone had someone. He had always assumed that people had families, but Clara had none. She had been alone for a long time. Ethan wanted to ask more, but he did not. He could see that the question made her uncomfortable. He decided to wait. Instead, he asked something simpler. "Where did you come from?" Clara looked up. Her eyes were distant, as if she was remembering something. She said, "I came from a town far away. I was told to come here to marry a man I never met." Ethan felt a chill run through him. He had heard stories like this before. He knew how dangerous it could be. Women were often promised to men they did not know. They were sent to the frontier with hope, only to be abandoned. Ethan had seen the damage it caused. He looked at Clara and asked gently, "Did the man ever come?" Clara shook her head. "No," she said. "He never came." Ethan felt anger rise inside him. He wanted to find the man and make him pay for what he had done. But he also knew that anger would not help Clara. She needed safety. She needed a place to belong. Ethan stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the snow. He thought about the town and the people who would judge Clara. He thought about the danger she might face if she stayed alone. He turned back to Clara and said, "You can stay here for now. I will figure things out." Clara looked at him, and for the first time, her eyes showed something like relief. She nodded slowly.
"Thank you," she said again. Ethan nodded.
He did not say anything more. He did not need to. The decision was made. He would help her. He would protect her. He would not leave her alone. That night, Ethan kept the fire burning and watched Clara sleep. He felt a strange sense of responsibility. He did not know what the future would bring, but he knew that he could not ignore the woman who had arrived at his door. The frontier was a dangerous place, but Ethan was a man who believed in doing what was right. And right now, the right thing was to keep Clara safe. The next morning was bright, but the air was still cold. The snow had stopped falling and the sky was clear. Ethan McCall walked outside and felt the crisp winter air in his lungs. He could see his breath in front of him like a small cloud. The ranch looked peaceful, but Ethan knew the peace was only temporary. The frontier was always changing, and danger could come at any time. Clara was already awake. She was sitting near the fire with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She looked calm, but Ethan could see the tension in her face. She kept looking out the window, as if she expected something to happen. Her eyes were always watching. Ethan wondered what she was waiting for. He walked to the kitchen and began preparing breakfast. Clara watched him, but she did not speak. She seemed lost in thought. Ethan knew that she was not used to living in a home. She was not used to having someone care for her. She was not used to feeling safe. When breakfast was ready, Ethan called her. "Come eat," he said. Clara stood up and walked to the table. She ate slowly, as if she was not used to having food. Ethan watched her carefully. He could see that she was still not comfortable. He could see that she was still afraid. After breakfast, Ethan told her to rest. He had a long day of work ahead. The snow had made the roads difficult, and he needed to check the fences and make sure the animals were safe. Clara nodded and went back to the living room. Ethan went outside and began his work. The snow was deep, and his boots sank into it. He walked to the fence line and started checking for damage. The wind was cold, but Ethan did not mind. He had lived in this land long enough to know how to handle the cold. He had learned to respect it. As he worked, Ethan kept thinking about Clara. He wondered about her past. He wondered what had happened to her. He wondered why she was so quiet. He wondered why she kept looking out the window like she was waiting for someone. He had a feeling that she was hiding something. Not because he thought she was dangerous, but because he thought she was hurting. He thought she was protecting herself from pain. Ethan finished his work and returned to the house. Clara was sitting near the window, staring outside. She did not look up when he entered. Ethan walked over and stood behind her. He looked at the view outside. The snow was bright and clean. It looked beautiful, but it also looked lonely. Ethan cleared his throat. "You look like you are waiting for someone," he said. Clara did not respond at first. Then she turned her head slowly and looked at him. Her eyes were calm, but her face showed pain. "I am waiting for him," she said quietly. Ethan felt a shock run through him. He had expected her to say something else. He had expected her to say she was waiting for help, or for a friend, or for a family member, but she said she was waiting for him. He asked, "Who?" Clara looked down at her hands and said, "The man I was supposed to marry. He promised he would come. He said he would meet me here." Ethan felt anger rise in his chest. He wanted to shout. He wanted to find the man and make him answer for what he had done. But he also knew that anger would not help Clara. She needed someone to calm her, not someone to fuel her pain. Ethan sat down beside her and said, "He didn't come. He left you alone." Clara nodded slowly. "Yes," she said. "He didn't come." Ethan watched her face. He could see the pain, but he could also see something else. There was a small part of her that still believed he would come. She still hoped he would appear at any moment. Ethan felt a strange sadness. He had never seen someone so deeply hurt by hope. He had seen people lose hope, but he had never seen someone cling to it so tightly. He decided to ask more, but he wanted to be gentle. "Do you know why he didn't come?" he asked. Clara shook her head. "No," she said. "I don't know. I tried to find him, but no one knew where he was." Ethan thought about that. He wondered if the man had been lying from the beginning. He wondered if Clara had been tricked. He wondered if she had been used. He looked at Clara and said, "You were promised to a man you never met." "That is not right." Clara looked at him. Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not cry. She swallowed hard and said, "I know, but I thought I could trust him. I thought my life would be better." Ethan felt a deep sadness for her. He had always believed that people should be honest. He had always believed that promises should be kept. But he knew that the world was not always fair. Clara stood up suddenly. She walked to the door and opened it. The cold air rushed in. She stood there for a moment, looking out into the snow. Ethan followed her. He stood beside her and looked out at the land. Clara spoke softly. "I keep thinking I will see him," she said. "I keep thinking he will ride up on a horse and say he is sorry." Ethan looked at her. He could see the pain in her eyes. He could see how she wanted to believe. He wanted to tell her that it would not happen. He wanted to tell her to stop waiting. But he also knew that she needed time. He put a hand on her shoulder. Clara flinched slightly at first, but she did not move away. She looked at Ethan with a mixture of fear and trust. "Clara," he said gently, "I can't make him come, but I can promise you this: you will not be alone anymore." Clara looked at him. Her eyes softened slightly. She nodded, but she did not speak. Ethan could see that she was trying to trust him, but it was difficult for her. She had been hurt by promises before. She had been left alone. She had been abandoned. Ethan knew that he had to earn her trust. He knew that he had to show her that he was different. He had to show her that he was not like the man who had promised her a life and then disappeared. He decided to do something to help her. He decided to show her that she could learn to live again. Ethan walked back into the house and grabbed a pair of gloves and a rope. He turned to Clara and said, "Come with me." Clara looked surprised. "Where are we going?" she asked. Ethan smiled slightly. "To the barn," he said. "You said you wanted to help. Now you will learn how to ride." Clara's eyes widened. She looked afraid. She shook her head. "I can't," she said. "I don't know how." Ethan nodded. "That's why I'm going to teach you," he said. Clara hesitated. She looked at the snow-covered ground and then at Ethan. She could see the kindness in his eyes. She could see that he was serious. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll try." Ethan led her to the barn. The animals were calm and the smell of hay filled the air. Ethan chose a gentle horse, one that was used to beginners. He led it out of the stall and brushed it carefully. Clara watched him with curiosity. Ethan handed her the reins and showed her how to hold them. He guided her hands, teaching her how to control the horse. Clara listened carefully. She did not speak much, but she watched every movement. At first, Clara was nervous. Her hands trembled, and she kept looking down at the horse's feet. But Ethan stayed calm. He spoke softly and gave her small instructions. "Sit up straight," he said. "Hold the reins firmly. Don't pull too hard. The horse will listen to you." Clara nodded. She tried to follow his words. She breathed slowly, trying to calm her nerves. After a few minutes, Clara began to relax. She started to feel the strength of the horse beneath her. She looked up and saw the world from a different perspective. She looked at the snow-covered land and felt something she had not felt in a long time: hope. Ethan watched her carefully. He could see the change in her face. She was still afraid, but she was also beginning to feel alive again. When they returned to the house, Clara looked at Ethan with a small smile. It was not a big smile, but it was real. "Thank you," she said. Ethan nodded. He did not say much. He knew that words were not enough. He knew that he had to keep helping her, day by day. That night, as the fire burned, Ethan watched Clara. She was still quiet, but she was different. She was not just waiting anymore. She was learning to live again. Ethan realized that her past would not disappear easily. He realized that she would always carry her pain with her. But he also realized that she was strong enough to keep moving forward. And for the first time, Ethan felt a new kind of responsibility. Not just for his ranch or his animals, but for the woman who had arrived at his door and changed his life. The days passed slowly, but each day felt like a small victory. The snow began to melt, and the sun returned to the sky. The frontier was still harsh, but it was less dangerous than before. Ethan McCall continued to work on his ranch, and Clara continued to learn. The two of them had formed a quiet routine. Clara woke up early each morning now. She helped Ethan prepare breakfast, clean the house, and feed the animals. She moved with purpose, but she still had a strange calmness about her. She did not speak much, but her actions showed that she was trying. She was trying to live. Ethan watched her carefully. He could see that she was improving. She was learning how to trust, and she was learning how to feel safe. But Ethan also knew that her past was still with her. He could see it in the way she flinched when someone came too close, or the way she looked at the horizon as if she expected someone to arrive. One afternoon, the town's messenger arrived. He was a young man with a small bag over his shoulder. He walked up to Ethan's house and knocked on the door. Ethan opened it and looked at the man. "Mr. McCall?" the messenger asked. Ethan nodded. "Yes," he said. "What do you want?" The messenger looked nervous. "There is a man in town who wants to speak with you," he said. "He says it is important." Ethan frowned. "Who is he?" The messenger hesitated. "He didn't say," he replied. "He only said it is about the woman staying at your house." Ethan's heart tightened. He knew immediately who the messenger meant. He knew that Clara's past had finally caught up with her. He could feel the danger in the air. Ethan thanked the messenger and closed the door. He stood in the middle of the room, thinking. He looked at Clara, who was sitting near the fire. Her face was calm, but Ethan could see the fear in her eyes. She knew something was wrong. She could feel it. Ethan walked over to her and said, "Someone is coming." Clara's eyes widened. "Who?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "I don't know yet," he said. "But it's about you." Clara stood up slowly. She looked pale. She looked like a person who had been waiting for this moment for a long time. She had been waiting for him to come. She had been waiting for the man who had promised her a life. She had been waiting for the danger. Ethan could see the fear in her. He could see the way her body tightened. He could see the way she looked toward the door, as if she expected someone to walk in at any moment. "Don't worry," Ethan said softly. "I will not let anything happen to you." Clara looked at him. Her eyes were filled with a mixture of hope and doubt. She wanted to believe him, but she had been hurt before. She had learned not to trust easily. Ethan knew he had to act quickly. He decided to go to town and find the man who was coming. He needed to know what was happening. He needed to protect Clara. Ethan saddled his horse and prepared to ride. Clara stood outside watching him. She looked nervous, but she also looked determined. She did not want Ethan to go alone. "Can I come with you?" Clara asked. Ethan looked at her. He could see the fear in her eyes, but he could also see strength. She was not the same woman who had arrived at his door. She was stronger now. She had learned to stand up for herself. Ethan hesitated. He did not want to put her in danger. He did not want her to see the town's gossip or the men who might judge her. But he also knew that she deserved to be involved. She deserved to know what was happening.
"All right," Ethan said finally, "but you stay close to me."
"Don't talk to anyone. Just stay with me." Clara nodded. She climbed onto her horse, and together they rode toward the town. The town looked busy, even in the cold. People were walking around doing their work, talking and trading. The town was a small place, but it was full of life. Ethan and Clara rode through the main street, and Ethan noticed how people stared at them. They looked at Clara with curiosity and suspicion. Ethan could feel their eyes on her like a heavy weight. Clara tried to ignore them. She kept her head down and focused on the road. But Ethan could see that the stares were affecting her. She was trying to be strong, but she was still scared. They reached the town's saloon. Ethan dismounted and tied his horse. Clara stayed close behind him. Ethan walked inside, and the smell of smoke and old wood filled the air. The saloon was crowded, but Ethan did not look around. He walked straight to the man who was waiting for him. The man was tall and had a rough face. He looked like someone who had seen many hard days. He wore a long coat and a hat pulled low over his eyes. Ethan recognized him as a man who often worked as a messenger or a guide. "You're the man who sent the message?" Ethan asked. The man nodded. "Yes," he said. "I have a message from a man in town. He wants to talk to you about the woman at your ranch." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Who is he?" Ethan asked again. The messenger looked around nervously. "He said he will come tonight," he said. "He said he will come to your ranch." Ethan's heart sank. He knew this meant trouble. He knew that the man was not coming to apologize. He was coming to take Clara away or to threaten her. Ethan thanked the messenger and left the saloon. He walked outside and looked at Clara. She was standing near the door, watching him. She looked worried, but she also looked brave. She had come with him, and she was ready to face whatever was coming. Ethan walked over to her and said, "We need to get back." "He's coming tonight." Clara nodded. "What will he do?" she asked. Ethan hesitated. He did not want to scare her. He did not want to make her panic. But he also knew that she needed to understand the danger. "He might try to take you," Ethan said. "Or he might try to scare you into going with him. We must be ready." Clara's face changed. She looked like a person who had been waiting for this moment. She looked like a person who had already decided what she would do. "I won't go with him," she said firmly. Ethan felt a strange pride in his chest. He had not expected her to be so strong. She had been through so much, but she was not broken. She was not weak. She was a survivor. Ethan and Clara rode back to the ranch quickly. The sky was turning dark, and the wind was picking up. The ride felt long, and Ethan's mind was full of thoughts. He wondered what the man would do. He wondered if the town would support him. He wondered if Clara would be safe. When they reached the ranch, Ethan secured the doors and windows. He moved quietly and carefully. He wanted to make sure everything was ready. He wanted to protect Clara. Clara stood near the window, watching the horizon. She looked calm, but Ethan could see the fear in her eyes. She was waiting for the man to arrive. She was waiting for the moment that would change her life. Ethan sat down beside her and said, "You don't have to face this alone." Clara looked at him. Her eyes softened. She nodded slowly. "Thank you," she said. The night grew darker, and the wind grew stronger. The ranch was quiet, but Ethan could feel the tension in the air. He could feel the danger coming closer. He kept the fire burning and the doors locked. He waited for the man to arrive. Hours passed, and the night grew colder. Clara stayed close to Ethan. She did not speak. She simply watched the door, waiting. Then, in the distance, Ethan heard the sound of horses. The sound was faint, but it was clear enough. Ethan stood up and moved to the window. He saw a figure riding toward the ranch. Ethan's heart pounded. He knew this was the man. He knew this was the moment Clara had been waiting for. He turned to Clara and said, "Stay behind me." Clara nodded. She stood close to Ethan, ready to face whatever came. Ethan walked to the door and opened it slightly. The cold air rushed in. He looked out and saw the man on his horse. The man's face was hidden by his hat. He looked dangerous. He looked confident. He looked like someone who believed he could take whatever he wanted. Ethan spoke loudly. "What do you want?" The man stopped his horse. He looked at Ethan and said, "I want the woman." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "She's not going anywhere with you," he said. The man laughed. "You think you can stop me?" he asked. Ethan felt anger rise inside him, but he kept his voice calm. He knew that anger could make things worse. He knew that he had to stay strong. "I will protect her," Ethan said. "If you want her, you will have to go through me." The man stared at Ethan for a moment. Then he smiled. "We will see," he said. Ethan closed the door and locked it. He turned to Clara and said, "Get ready. He might try to break in." Clara nodded. She looked scared, but she did not run. She stayed with Ethan. Ethan knew that the night would be long. He knew that the danger was not over. But he also knew that he was not alone. He had Clara with him, and Clara had him. The frontier was harsh, but Ethan had learned that sometimes, even in the harshest places, people could find strength in each other. The night felt longer than any night Ethan McCall had ever experienced. The wind outside howled like a wild animal, and the snow drifted against the windows. Ethan sat near the door, listening to every sound. He could hear the creak of the house, the crackle of the fire, and the soft breathing of Clara. She was sitting close to him, her hand shaking slightly. Ethan could feel her fear. He kept thinking about the man outside. He had heard the man's voice. He had seen the man's eyes. The man was not just a stranger. He was someone who believed he had the right to take Clara away. Ethan did not know the man's name, but he knew the danger was real. Ethan kept the lantern lit. He did not want to give the man a chance to sneak in. He also kept his rifle close, but he did not want Clara to see it. He did not want to scare her more than she already was. Clara looked at Ethan and said quietly, "Do you think he will come inside?" Ethan shook his head. "I don't know," he said, "but I will not let him hurt you." Clara nodded, but her eyes showed doubt. She had been hurt before. She had learned that people could break promises and leave. She had learned that the world was not always safe. Ethan felt a deep sense of responsibility. He had promised himself that he would protect her. He had promised himself that he would not let her face the danger alone. Now, he had to keep that promise. Hours passed. The wind continued to blow. The snow continued to fall. The night was quiet, but Ethan could feel the tension in the air. He could feel the man outside, waiting. Suddenly, a loud sound came from the front door. It was a heavy knock. Ethan stood up quickly. His heart raced. He walked to the door and looked through the small window. He saw the man standing outside, his face still hidden by the hat. The man looked calm. He looked like someone who believed he had control. Ethan opened the door a little and asked, "What do you want?" The man spoke calmly. "I want the woman," he said again. "She belongs to me." Ethan felt anger rise inside him, but he kept his voice steady. "She belongs to herself," he said. "She is not yours." The man laughed. "You think you can stop me?" he asked. Ethan stared at him. He could feel the danger. He could feel the man's confidence. He knew that the man was not afraid. Ethan knew that he had to be careful. The man spoke again. "If you don't let her go, there will be trouble," he said. Ethan's jaw tightened. He knew that the man was trying to scare him. He knew that the man wanted to force him to give Clara up. But Ethan refused to back down. "I won't let you take her," Ethan said. The man looked at him for a moment, then he turned his horse and rode away. Ethan watched him go. He felt a moment of relief, but he also knew that the danger was not over. The man could come back with more people. The man could come back with guns. Ethan knew he had to be ready. Ethan closed the door and locked it again. He turned to Clara and said, "He left for now, but he may come back." Clara's eyes filled with tears. She had been holding her emotions inside for so long, but now the fear was too much. She sat down on the floor and cried quietly. Ethan did not say anything. He did not try to comfort her with words. He simply sat beside her and let her cry. After a while, Clara calmed down. She wiped her tears and looked at Ethan. "Why are you helping me?" she asked again, her voice trembling. Ethan looked at her. He could see her pain. He could see her fear. He could see the way she had been hurt by life. He took a deep breath and said, "Because you deserve safety. Because you deserve a life. Because I believe you are stronger than you know." Clara looked at him. Her eyes softened. She nodded slowly. She did not say anything more, but Ethan could see that she was beginning to trust him. The next morning, the sun rose bright and clear. The snow had stopped falling, and the world looked calm again. Ethan and Clara went outside. The air was cold, but it felt less dangerous. The morning felt like a new beginning. Ethan and Clara worked together on the ranch. They repaired fences, fed the animals, and prepared for the spring. The work was hard, but it was also healing. Clara seemed different now. She was not just surviving, she was living. As the days passed, Clara's strength grew as she learned to ride better. She learned to handle the animals. She learned to trust the land. She learned to trust Ethan. Ethan also changed. He had always been a quiet man. He had always been alone. But now, he felt something new. He felt a connection. He felt like he had a purpose beyond his ranch. One day, a man from the town arrived at the ranch. He was the same messenger who had brought the first message. He looked nervous and tired. He walked up to Ethan and said, "The man who wanted Clara is gone." He left town. Ethan felt relief. He had been waiting for that news. He had been waiting for the danger to end. Clara heard the news too. She looked at Ethan and smiled. It was the first real smile she had shown since she arrived. It was small, but it was real. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. He realized that Clara had changed his life. She had brought something into his world that he had not known he was missing. He had always thought he was fine alone. He had always thought he did not need anyone. But Clara had shown him that life could be different. Life could be shared. Life could be better. Months passed, and the snow melted. The land became green again. The ranch was alive with new growth. Clara and Ethan worked together like a team. They were not just surviving anymore. They were building a future. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Ethan and Clara stood outside the house. The sky was painted with orange and red. The air was warm, and the world felt calm. Clara looked at Ethan and said softly, "Thank you." Ethan looked at her. He did not say anything at first. He simply looked at her. He could see the woman she had become. She was no longer the frightened stranger. She was a strong woman who had survived. She was a woman who had learned to trust. Ethan finally spoke. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "You earned this. Tonight. You earned your life." Clara smiled again. This time, it was bigger. This time, it was full of hope. Ethan and Clara stood there quietly, watching the sun disappear. The frontier was still harsh, but they knew they could face it together. They knew they were not alone anymore. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt like he belonged somewhere.